Aloha, and thank you for tuning in to It's About Recovery. This show is sponsored by Hinamauka Recovery Center. This show presents how recovery from drug and alcohol addiction is possible through treatment, and that people do get well and live wonderful, productive lives. My name is Patty Johnson, and I'm your host today. Today we have a wonderful topic. It's focusing on recovery, and it's called New Horizons, a New Beginning. And we have two special guests that are going to be sharing about their story, about the wonderful works they do, and about the recovery efforts that they're making in this community. Our first guest we have, thank you, is Mark Turansky. You are the Executive Director at New Horizons, Hawaii.
I am, Patty. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. In fact, the other day when I got to sit down for lunch with Alan, it was really exciting. We were able to talk over lunch, and you mentioned being part of the show, and so this is a real privilege to be here. Thanks for
thank you so much,
out.
Mark.
Yeah,
and then we have Leanne Kaava.
Yes.
Thank you, Leanne, for being
welcome.
here.
Leanne's one of our participants. She's my shining pupil, so I asked her to come today, and she's just wonderful. You'll love to hear her story.
Oh, great. So thank you both for being here.
Absolutely.
And this is a wonderful thing, is to share about different approaches in treatment. And maybe, Mark, you could start off by sharing a little bit of what got you into this field of addiction. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. You know, I grew up in the 70s. That was in that realm where there was a lot of drugs and alcohol, and so I was a child of the 70s, so to speak, and started using and drinking heavily at age 13, and went 20 years battling addiction. And tried all sorts of things to stop. Once I finally was run into my end and I just became desperate, I tried, oh my goodness, I tried 12-step programs, I tried online stuff with accountability partners, some faith-based stuff, nothing seemed to work for me, personally, until I stepped into New Horizons. And I experienced this program myself in like the mid-90s, and it just radically transformed my life.
That's amazing. So you are somebody who went through the throes of addiction, and today you found recovery, and you're sharing this program that you are the executive director, and you also facilitate, I'm sure, the different modalities of the program. Thank you so much for...
Absolutely. I believe the saying, from your pain comes your purpose, and that certainly has been a factor in my life. So I wanted to be able to, as soon as I had this life transformation, I wanted to be able to give back, and so this led me into, I had already been counseling and doing this, but this led me into this arena and became trained in the New Horizons approach, and then 2008 I took over as the executive director.
Wow,
and been
that's
running
awesome.
it ever since, and trying to tweak things, and it's been exciting.
That's great. So Leanne, you are a participant of the New Horizon. Could you share about, as a recovery person, what it was like before you got yourself into recovery?
Well, actually, before I came to New Horizons, I had experienced recovery off of alcohol and ice addiction. And I've been through some 12-step programs. I also went to a faith-based program. And my husband currently does run a program. I was sober for about maybe 13 years, and I sort of got caught up by mistake in taking pain meds, and it was really hard because it started out so innocent, and then slowly I got addicted, and couldn't believe that after so long of being sober that I was hooked on the substance. And I couldn't turn to my husband for help, and I felt that I needed something else. I needed to find something for me. So I went looking, and I went on the internet, and I came across Mark's website, and I just knew instantly that this was for me. It was a totally different approach, and they talked about treatment camp. I read dozens of testimonies that people had left on the website, and I just felt that I wanted to be a part, and I did.
Yeah.
And it's changed my life.
Yes.
And I really stand behind what Mark does, and I guess we're going to be talking about the different forms of treatment later, but the program has changed my life.
Yes, and you are a wonderful example of what recovery is. You know, it's amazing how people go through the throes of addiction and think that there is no recovery for them. They think that they have to drink or use for the rest of their life, and it's even I myself am in recovery myself, and you know, I never thought that there will be an end to this addiction. And life today is so wonderful, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Or
great.
they live in fear that I'm going to trigger a relapse, and that's being enslaved to your addiction. And I think the fear factor can be removed.
So why don't you share a little bit about New Horizon and what do you folks do there?
Absolutely. New Horizons, first of all, has been around since 1980 here in the islands, and so it's not a new program. New Horizons utilizes a cognitive behavioral therapy format, CBT. And for people who might not be familiar with what CBT is, it's basically, it's a fancy psychological term, but if you change the way you think, you'll change the way you behave. And so the New Horizons program has two different factors to it. First of all, dealing with the addiction, with relapse prevention, and going through the CBT parts of the program. And then the other part, which is really important, is dealing with the underlying causes of addiction. Why do I do what I do? What are the matters of the heart? You see, if I have this addiction and I take it out and I don't put healthy back in, then I'm setting myself up for relapse. So for a lot of people, what does healthy look like? How do I manage stress and anxiety and the difficulties of relational problems in my life without the aid of this thing that's kind of helped me for all these years? And so both of those make almost like two railroad tracks, if you will, as the impetus of the program.
That's great. So is it a residential program or is it an outpatient setting?
New Horizons has always been outpatient, intensive outpatient. Just over the last few years, we've added in our own version of inpatient. And it's a very unique thing called treatment camp. And treatment camp is where it's a one-week program that launches your recovery in a very, very powerful way. And so treatment camp is where somebody will go up and I rent the lodge out at Camp Mokulea on the North Shore.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful lodge, it's right on the beach. It's excellent. Everybody gets their own private room, and we come together and we do the program in a whole week. And then that group forms, they kind of like bond, and then they go into follow-up afterwards. So it's unlimited follow-up. Whenever somebody participates in treatment camp, they automatically are part of our follow-up program, and that goes on for as long as they want to be a part of it.
So you are part of the treatment camp.
Yes.
What was it like? Did you? Is it the beginning of the program? Is the camp, or is it after intensive outpatient?
It's the treatment camp was the beginning.
The beginning.
So what I did for myself after I talked with Mark and I signed up, and within a week or so he had a treatment camp coming up, so I was lucky. I actually detoxed before I went in, and I started the detox and went on some medication from the doctors, and it helped me through the withdrawal process, and that way I was able to learn and take in the program, because if I go there to detox, it's not like your regular program, because there's so much information that you get in those 6 days that you're out there. So you need to have a sort of clear mind so you can take it in and participate. That's a big thing. Being at Mokuleia, it's a beautiful place. The lodge, you have your own private room, private bath, so you're not worried. You don't get searched like other programs where they go through all your belongings. It's a total different approach. And the one thing that sticks out in my head about this program is the your thinking, the cognitive behavioral therapy, saying that you can use if you want. You can do this, and no one's telling you you can't do anything. As for me, I'm a rebellious person. So if someone tells me you can't do this, I'm going to want to do it even more. So Mark's idea that he brings to the table is you can, but it's your choice.
It's a really counterintuitive approach, really, and that's almost the reverse psychology of it is what makes it so powerful. In fact, Patty, I'm going to give you a little token here.
Thank you.
Okay. We have this. Well, first of all, the principles of the program are every person gets a workbook. This is the book that I've written.
Figure it, face it, fix it.
Figure it, face it, fix it. Your surprising solution to substance abuse and addiction. And so We work through the principles in the book, but basically you have this little token, and this token's designed, it's the outline of the program. And the program goes like this, or the CBT part that you memorize. I want to use, I can use, however, once and it's over. So in this moment, I choose to accept temporary discomfort so I can get my benefits. And those 6 phrases outline the CBT aspect, and believe it or not, we spend a whole week talking about the phrases here because each word and each phrase are like pregnant with meaning and have a lot to be said about them, and it's exciting to go through it. And it's counterintuitive because, like Leanne was saying, you know, why would I say I want to use? Well, because that admits that this part of me wants to use, and so that I can take personal responsibility for my addiction and make sure that I'm vigilant and I'm a sentry over my own life. Each phrase has some kind of meaning behind that we spend a lot of time talking about together. And of course the token means I carry it around in my pocket or my purse, and I memorize it and I say these phrases, and whenever an urge comes, then the thoughts come to mind, and I'm able to deal with that.
Yeah,
in a
I'm really
CBT
glad you
way.
mentioned about the urge, because you know, for people like for myself, for example, who is abusing drugs and alcohol, it's like to stop and to be around people in a social situation. You know, it's like the cravings. I would have cravings to use because I don't deal with social situations without drugs, you know? And so it's kind of like saying that, you know, you have a choice today.
Yes.
Do you want to, you could just leave right now,
Yep.
and I could go out and use, or do I choose to stay here, deal with the anxiety, deal with the discomfort, and face recovery. And I'm sure that's what you went through as you were going through your, you know, you going through your detox. You know, it must have been really difficult to be around people, but then at the same time, bonding.
That
with,
was a big plus.
Yes.
Is I didn't expect to get close. I had a lot of anxiety going out there, and even walking in the first day, meeting all these different people, and it wasn't a big group. It was 10 of us. But I wasn't expecting that bond. Like, we really bonded, men and women, and just people from different lifestyles, and being together. I felt so close with everyone. I felt so good. I didn't want to leave. I felt like crying, you know, and when it was time to go home, because I'm losing my friends, I felt. But then it's good with the after treatment, the follow-up, that we can all still meet and be together, you know, and then we keep in touch. Even the ones that aren't here, they're maybe in the mainland or Big Island, we do video. So they can chime in on our groups through video, Skype, Google, or
Even this morning, we have a little text thing. Everybody was texting, we're going to do the program this morning. So I texted the entire group, you know, and everybody that goes through one of the treatment camps automatically become part of this follow-up Ohana. And we, yeah, like she says, it's really fun to keep those relationships going.
Yeah, so after that 6-day camp, you know, with the bonding and the education and realizing that it's a choice, a healthy choice that I choose to make. Then they go into your intensive outpatient program, which is kind of connecting about 3 times a week.
Well, they can be part of an IOP.
Okay.
It's very much a client-driven program. And so some people like to go into an IOP afterwards. Some people just come to our follow-up group meetings. We meet every Monday night for the follow-up group. Some people do the follow-up group and then a combination of, you know, doing one-on-ones. And so it's really, they can craft their own program, you know, for that part of it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking some people do work, you know, and at least that those will be available, you know, on certain times of the day so that it'll accommodate everybody.
Well, this is one of the draws of this particular type of program. You know, oftentimes inpatient could be 30, 60, 90 days, in some cases even a year or more. And for the professional, that's very difficult to be able to leave their occupation or their job for that length of time. And so 1 week, almost anybody can carve out 1 week. And so our demographic, you know, somebody like Leanne here, you know, a CEO of the company, or a manager, or even a housewife who drinks too much wine. I mean, that's the demographic that really is drawn toward this type of inpatient program, because you know, it's doable. I can carve out a week, and then move into the outpatient afterwards.
It's really great to know that you have a continuity of care, that they are part of this ohana or this camp, and then they get to connect still yet with, with their peers and with other people, and meet one-on-one for counseling, or through the videos, or whatever. And it's nice to know that there is like an alumni kind of like a program where they stay connected throughout not only that week or that month, but maybe throughout some years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that you can always be there and always have this support system around you. And I think too that, like what Leanne was pointing out, it's weird to say, the phrases I want to use, I can use. And why would I say that? Well, it's because, like you were just saying, I get into this social situation and I have these options. I'm empowered to make choices. One of my choices is I can use. But as soon as I use, I lose all the benefits of sobriety that I've come to enjoy. And just really, and so if you're going to stop, you see, if I'm going to stop, I have to have a reason to stop. I have to have a reason that is going to compel me, because let's face it, using brings with it a certain amount of benefits in and of itself. It makes me feel good. It takes a little edge off that social situation like you were talking about. But also it brings so much destructiveness in my life. And so when I look at this, now this is why the program that's on this little token is called the choice process. I come to this moment where I experience this urge, and now this program kind of walks you through, or takes that little segment of time and dissects it, if you will, and helps me to change my thinking. Oftentimes I have stinking thinking about my, that leads me back into my addiction over and over again. That needs to be challenged in an experiential way. That's CBT. So when I come to that point, I'm going to make the choice that gives me the most benefits. The benefits of sobriety, as you know, as you were just talking about, are wonderful. And when I start leaning into that, then I have a reason to say no, and it becomes easier and easier and easier, because I begin to love myself sober and hate myself when I'm using. And that's been my experience when I went through it myself.
Yeah, that's great.
Does that make sense?
That does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's like I like the part about we have choices today, and we choose to be happy, or we can choose to be miserable. It's our choice, and we pretty much we have our own destiny. So there's some people that do relapse. There's some people that do struggle, that are going through a lot of different in and outs from inpatient hospitals.
Well, Patty, the alcoholism and drug addiction, it's just a symptom. When you're doing drugs or alcohol, because really the underlying problem. So getting off the alcohol and drugs, and then now I can really deal with those issues that are causing me to want to use or drink or get high, taking pain pills. So for me, like, a lot of things have happened since treatment camp. And I went in December, and my life was so chaotic before, and I was going through this depression, and I was really ill, and I haven't worked for over a year. And when I got sober, I realized that my home environment wasn't helping me. And so I had to take it a step further, and I actually moved and separated with my husband. So everything, just because you get off of alcohol and drugs, doesn't mean everything will become perfect and, everything's all rosy. Because now you have all those issues you have to deal with.
That's right. That's right.
And so it might not be perfect, but at least I'm getting to the core, and then now it's allowing me to be able to work on these issues in a healthy way instead of masking it and covering it up.
That's right.
I always believe that there is a relational component to addiction. And what I mean by that is, if you start to look at why people use, there's always a relational component to that. And so when I'm stressed, because of relationship difficulties in my life, I tend to default to drugs or alcohol to kind of manage that stress. Like you were just mentioning, a very common thing is when I'm going into a social situation, I kind of get anxious with that. That's a relationship kind of issue, if you will. And so, again, if we're going to take this thing out, addiction out, we must address the relational component of addiction. This is a huge part of the program.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's really kind of like you know, addressing all those cognitive distortions, the way that we think, the negative thinking, that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be in recovery, it's all this, and really turning things around, thinking that, you know what, I can do it, I can do it, you know.
That is a big part of it, a huge part of it. Also, elevating your emotional intelligence. Being able to connect with other people, being able to experience empathy and compassion. Many of those types of emotions have been kind of sealed off. Addiction isolates. It takes us out of our relational. Most people who are using, they will isolate themselves from the people they love. Relationships start to break down. Now all of a sudden I stop using, I want to re-enter those relationships. Well, how am I going to rebuild them? How am I going to redevelop trust? How am I going to communicate well with other people? Those are all really tough roads in the recovery process that need to be looked at. And so we hit that really hard. And that's sometimes part of almost the most favorite part of the treatment program.
I think it must be very exciting when people start peeling the onion, you know, and just you see a metamorphosis of how people grow. You see them when they come in and they're just beaten, and then you see them when they leave and they're a completely different person. You know, it's just a wonderful experience, and it's just a wonderful program that you folks have. You know, I'm so happy that you folks are here. You know, I know that the people are listening in right now, and they probably have their loved one that is using, or they probably struggling themselves. They just don't know what to do. Maybe they're drinking too much wine for dinner, or they're having problems with their employment, or whatever relationship problems that they're dealing with. And they're thinking, you know, I really do need that change. I really do need to think of doing something different. Is there any words of hope, Mark, that you'd like to share to the audience that are listening in right now?
Well, absolutely. I believe that there is freedom from addiction, and that one need not live in fear. In fear I'm going to relapse, or I fear I can't be in this situation without going back to my former life. And so that's why I do what I do. I'm very passionate about this because I've seen the transformation in my own life, and so to be able to help people, like you said, you know, usually when somebody comes into my office for the first time, oftentimes they're crying, they're just miserable. I remember doing that myself the first time I went in, and especially saw Katie, which was the founder of this program. I was crying my eyes out. I was just so miserable, you know. And then
I'm sorry if we're laughing, but we're
you know,
laughing.
because
we're smiling because we can relate.
Absolutely, because on the flip side of that, it's so exciting to be able to be free from that and live a life that's not fear. Be fearful that I'm going to go back to my addiction, that I don't have to. I'm still vigilant about my program. I don't want to exercise false confidence. False confidence is where I say, well, I got this licked, I can just go back and do a little bit here and there. And that's a little bit dangerous to be there. But also the other flip side of that is living in fear. Oh no, I can't drive by this place, or I can't go to this party because I might relapse. I want people to be free, to enjoy their life, to do anything with anybody. That's the freedom from addiction.
And it's totally possible. It happens every day. We see people getting in recovery every single day. And that's the thing that this show is all about, is, you know, there is so many people in recovery today. I know that there's a lot of struggles of addiction, but we see hundreds of people in Hawaii that are going through the recovery process, and they are changing their life, and they're making a great change to themselves and their family. It's just really a tearjerker for me to see that. I'm just wondering for you, Leanne, is there any, you know, you went through it. You actually went through it, and you changed your life around. And I'm sure other people are looking at you right now and saying, wow, you know, how did you do that? Is there any hope that you'd like to share to the audience?
There's always hope, you know, and that's one thing that I've had. It was always in here, is that hope, you know. So it's just finding the program that works and that can help you. And basically it's you that's doing the fighting, you know, but you're just utilizing all of these great tools that's been given to you. And for me personally, I was searching on the internet and came across this by accident, and I don't believe it was an accident. I believe, you know, someone led me there. And I emailed Mark late at night, and he responded right away. And I think with that timely response, it just really made me like, wow, because I was just feeling the waters or testing the waters. And then I ended up joining the program in a week and a half from that first email. So it just really, I mean, I never ever encountered a program like this. The whole thinking process is so different, and it's a different approach, and it's working. It's really working for me.
One of the things that I'm so grateful that Leanne came today because she really represents, prescription drug abuse. I mean, this is, for all the phone calls that come into New Horizons, it's always alcohol #1, and then now prescription drug abuse has been taken over the #2 slot from crack and meth, and I mean, it is an epidemic problem in recovery today that needs to be addressed. And so Leanne really represents a whole segment of people that inadvertently sometimes, because of a surgery or whatever, they find themselves addicted to. And if you don't address that, oftentimes because it's opiates, you might go into heroin as the prescription drugs are starting to dry up on the street right now. So it's a very serious problem, but you can overcome it, and that's the good news.
So if people are interested in to learning more about your program, we do have the number on the screen. And will you be available to talk to them?
Absolutely. Like what Leanne says, one of the things that often is mentioned is I try to make myself very accessible. I spend time on the phone and email, texting, all that stuff. So
are you also the facilitator at the camp? Are you going to be there?
Oh, yes. I'm at the camp the entire time. I have a staff that works with me, but I am there living with everybody and enjoying it. I don't want to go home when it's all done, too. It's really a positive experience.
Yes. Well, I just want to thank you folks for being here and sharing the great news, that treatment does work and that recovery is so possible. We see it, every time. We see it every day. And especially for you folks to be here on your busy schedule. And if anybody has any questions, you folks can call the agency, which is New Horizons Hawaii, and the number's on the screen. It's been just wonderful to have you folks here. I just want to share that there is so much recovery going on, and we have treatment services throughout the whole state of Hawaii. And we are so happy that we have different approaches because we have to fit the different needs. And New Horizon is a wonderful program. This is part 1 of New Horizon, A New Beginning. My name is Patty Johnson. I want to thank Hina Mauka for sponsoring this wonderful show. It's about recovery. Until we meet again, aloha and mahalo.